Amid rising tensions and fears of animosity, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will hold talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi at the upcoming G20 foreign ministers meeting. The talks come after US President Joe Biden said he hopes to have another conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping in the coming weeks. Biden last spoke with Xi over the phone in March to discuss Ukraine and other issues, with the US condemning Beijing's backing of Russia, but saying it saw little sign of material Chinese support for the invasion. Now, with inflation rising in America, the Biden administration is considering lowering tariffs on Chinese goods to tame America's soaring price rises. Those tariffs, of course, imposed by the Trump administration. The top US and Chinese diplomats last met on the sidelines of a conference in Singapore. The White House is refusing to confirm many details of the talks ahead of the G20 ministerial conference.
The Secretary intends to engage fully in the G20. I'm not going to speak to any plans on the part of Foreign Minister Lavrov or any other ministerial level participant, but I can tell you the Secretary will be a full and active participant in the G20, which we see as a valuable forum. And again, we are committed to the success of this G20 and the success of Indonesia's stewardship of it.
The relationship between Washington and Beijing is complex and potentially perilous. Issues on the agenda include American unease about China's expansionist ambitions in the Indo-Pacific region, a continuing tussle over Taiwan, the island that the US has vowed to support, and China backing Russia amid its war with Ukraine. So, back to New York, and WION's correspondent there, Susan Teherani. Susan, this meeting between Antony Blinken and Wang Yi presumably is designed to set the stage for an interaction between the US and Chinese presidents at some point soon. But are we clear yet about whether President Biden has taken the decision to lift some of those Trump-era tariffs?
No, what we have heard is that he's, quote, considering lifting those tariffs because inflation remains the top concern, not only for Americans, but for this administration and how to deal with it moving forward, notably towards the midterm elections. What we do know is that the president has been setting up these task forces for month after month in stages to see what part of these tariffs that it can remove. And the first stage presumably expired midnight on Tuesday without any, concrete solution or resolution on whether or not to lift these tariffs or not. One of the problems that the Biden administration is having right now is this sort of infighting and indecision on how to not only move forward with the tariffs, but how to, deal with the ongoing inflation. And there's a sense of frustration on whether or not, the president really can come out with a proper outline, not only in dealing with China, not only in dealing with these tariffs, but also convincing a reluctant Republican Party and human rights group on, whether or not lifting even part of these tariffs would be the right direction to go, considering, the human rights issues with the Uyghurs and the Chinese, and whether or not to keep them or not. So, the president doesn't really have much of a bargaining power here at home, let alone dealing with Xi. He's in a pretty tough spot. And when we ask, the White House, again, they say that, it's yet to be decided. There were numerous reports that he may come out with a solution as early as next week, but, everyone's saying we won't hold our breath.
And, of course, former President Trump, yesterday excoriated the Biden administration, even for thinking about alleviating those tariffs. Susan Teherani, live for us in New York today. Thanks very much indeed for covering both of those stories for us.